I'm Adam Hollingworth, and today on The Detail we continue the turbulent story of TV3's news service, what made it soar and what killed it. I joined the team in 2008, just as TV3 was shedding its anarchic roots. Here's Angus Gillies.
We have lost that real wacky, zany, untamed kind of spirit as we try to be serious and responsible and all those other things.
And despite the constant money worries, TV3 was making inroads into the opposition. At least that's what staff thought. But Mel Reid says no one else did.
I remember it. In the paper we were always called the fledging network. That was like our brand, the fledging network, the network in trouble. We were never just TV3, were we?
Former news boss Mark Jennings hated the underdog tag.
I think we had a lot of public support, being that underdog, but I personally wanted us to lose that underdog tag because I didn't see us for a big period of time as being underdogs. I saw us being a superior news service to TVNZ, so I didn't like the underdog tag.
I remember being told, you know, you've just got to get in front of them. And I said, well, it's not that hard because they're all wearing high heels and we're not. And also they were slow. They were slow to move. They couldn't move like us. Because we had no people and no resources. I remember there was a helicopter crash on the Auckland motorway. It was like, it was 5:45 or something.
Plane collide and one of the wings just got broken off the plane and they both just plummeted and just dived straight down.
But it was like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get there? Oh, who's got a motorbike? Boom, down, boom, live eye, on it.
But there was a bigger explosion when they landed and there was just, you know, just this terror went through me, mate. I just broke out into a sweat and just shook.
There wasn't a kind of 13 meetings about what we were going to do. It was just like we just had to go.
And for those era-defining stories like the death of Princess Diana.
She died exactly as she'd lived so much of her life, hounded by the paparazzi.
And 9/11.
The death toll is in the thousands. No one really has any idea how many.
TV3's bulletins were up there with the best. Here's producer Angus Gillies.
There's two producers sitting there and you've kind of been through so much together. It's like, this is figurative, it's like being in the trenches together. You get that kind of telepathic connection.
About 20 National Front members have turned out here today.
A new generation of journalists was coming through. Gun reporters like Michael Morra.
Somehow we kept going. I almost feel like all the adversity that was thrown at us made us stronger as a team. We came together and supported one another, and the collegial nature grew and grew and grew. And that is the essence of why Newshub 3 News has been so strong and so formidable. Because of the challenges we've faced, we've just become a more supportive unit, and it's almost become a situation of when you win, we all win.
Morra has broken stories about corrections, civil aviation, the Catholic Church.
As I speak, an investigative reporter from TV3 waits to do a story on us.
He even took swings at the government during lockdowns.
Newshub understands that just last week concerns were raised that due to nursing shortages here at the Crown Plaza, nurses were unable to perform daily health checks of all staff arriving for work.
The producers and bosses have always recognised exclusive stories and solid journalism as being the key to our success. And that is how you get noticed as a network. And so if I've been working away on something, you know, I've had great managers and producers and bosses who've said, keep going on that and we will get it to air.
And at a time when the 1 o'clock COVID press conference was the only show in town,
Afternoon, everybody. Thanks.
no one was off limits.
Doctors and nurses up and down the country were emailing me to say we do not have the swabs and PPE as is being claimed by Dr. Bloomfield.
All this as a tenacious new political editor was causing havoc in the gallery.
Paul Goldsmith is your only Māori MP in your top 12, is that right?
Yes, I think, because I think Paula Bennett is 13.
Problem is, no one told Paul Goldsmith.
Is Paul Goldsmith actually Māori? Because he just told us, Paul Goldsmith just told us he's not Māori. He just said he's not Māori. Okay, well, I'll go and talk to Paul.
Thank you.
So off Nikki Kay went and dug in.
Paul does have Ngāti Porou consent, but Ngāti Porou descent. No, not touching.
I'm not Maori myself.
Tova O'Brien attributes the devastating success of the report that pretty much doomed Todd Muller's leadership to teamwork.
You can't predict the National Party leadership pretending that one of their MPs is Māori so that they can up their quota, their diversity quota in their caucus, you know, and so those are the things you want to be able to show people, and that was one of those stories that was incredible because it was unfolding, it was happening live, you know, so it was kind of unfolding before our eyes and we were getting bumped from one place to another, and it speaks to the incredible camera operators that we work with at Newshub as well, Billy Payne, who was just with me, fling-dinging around those corridors and capturing all of those moments, because if it's not on camera when you work as a television reporter, it didn't happen at all.
It later transpired Muller had mental health problems, but O'Brien stands by her reporting.
He was someone who had just rolled the leadership of the National Party in an election year and taken over the leadership. So of course, that again, like the stakes and the thresholds are so high.
And O'Brien and her team were relentless with the then Labour government too.
Kia ora, good evening. The Prime Minister has sacked Claire Curran from Cabinet.
Claire Curran actually failed to disclose this, both in her ministerial diary and when she was asked a written parliamentary question about it.
But hang on, weren't you left-wing Schultz? No, sorry, were you right-wing Schultz?
Right-wing apparatchiks, yeah, that's right. And you know, and there's the beauty of being a political reporter, I think, is that you look at your inbox the next day and you will have equal measures left-wing shill or National Party hack, you know, and it's still to this day, people kind of give you 50-50.
It all meant O'Brien got her fair share of leaks.
We strived for it. And the other thing about Newshub is that even though it was, you know, ferocious and excitable and possibly prone to hyperbole, it was also, we had an enormous heart. And that was something I always saw with my team, is that they would be, you know, holding back tears, talking to the people whose stories they were telling. They cared deeply about the stories they were telling. And I think that drove a lot of what we did, and that drove a lot of the ethos as well. There was a whole lot of heart behind the work that Newshub Politics did, and that Newshub did in general.
You know we belong together.
And despite the quality of the journalism, the 6 o'clock news suffered a body blow with the loss of its lead-in programme Home and Away to TVNZ in 2013.
We overtook TVNZ in the 2554 demo, which is the important demo, in Auckland. And I thought at that stage, I was head of news here in Auckland, I thought, right, we've got these suckers now. And we did. But, of course, we had a very bad cock-up in programming, and that program was lost. And unfortunately, that was probably the start of many problems that led right up to today.
So part of the problem that led to its demise could be that lead-in program?
Yes, totally.
And it appeared to a few that someone was wrecking TV3 from within. Mark Jennings was to quit during the stormy 2 years when Mark Weldon was running the company from 2014 to 2016. Was this down to one man, or was this down to a whole other bunch of factors?
No, this was down to one man, pretty much.
Weldon was appointed to drag TV3 kicking and screaming into the digital age before it was too late, except Jennings says he went about it the wrong way.
Weldon was different. He was a McKinsey consultant. He was head of the NZX, New Zealand Stock Exchange. He had no media experience. So it was very different from that point of view. And he also, I think, didn't really understand things like editorial independence and newsrooms. And he was soon, I guess, on a collision course with the newsroom. He was also, unlike those other CEOs, he was also politically aligned. He used to tell me he was a friend of John Key's. We had a board who had directors on it who were aligned with the National Party. In the end, they did not like our current affairs journalists. They saw them almost as the enemy, and Mark Weldon really wanted to bring change there. And of course, that put me on a collision course with him very much.
Senior staff quit and long-form current affairs was abandoned. Melanie Reid was among those to be cut loose.
I just want to say that the Weldon era at TV3 was very, very odd, and some great people left. We were all seeing this kind of corporatisation of the media, or that's what it felt like at least. And then we had Weldon, who he didn't make any secret of the fact that he didn't like journalists, so we were really in trouble.
Other casualties included John Campbell and Hilary Barry.
To lose one superstar is misfortune. To lose 8 or 10 could be seen as carelessness.
Angus Gillies came to dread Mark Weldon's entrances.
When Weldon walked into the newsroom, it was like Darth Vader. It just kind of strolled in. The vibe just kind of changed, and you just wondered if at any moment he was going to reach over and start lifting you up and slowly choking you. You know, he had that kind of vibe.
And the newsroom, as you'll know, became very hostile towards him. And for me, in the end, I thought one of us has to go here, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go. So that's what happened.
At the same time, Weldon made controversial appointments like Rachel Glusina to run a gossip website called Scout that lasted a year.
I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm extremely excited, and I'm really proud of this product. I think you guys will be really proud of it too. I'm hoping we can all work together really well and produce some great content together.
Scout was meant to give consumers a diet of snackable news. Instead, it gave us the earth-shattering scoop that Mike Hosking used a dustbuster to clean his Ferrari, and, well, not much else really.
You know, one thing Mark Weldon used to say to me, I don't like this thing about a TV3 family. It's not a family. We need to get rid of this family thing. Now, family wasn't actually the right word. We were a close group of people who worked for each other, and I think he basically ended up seriously hurting that. And, you know, that was our great advantage over TVNZ, and part of that was lost. I think a little bit of it was lost.
But in what one insider called a colonel's coup, one by one the senior staff who were left approached the board, including Mike McRoberts, who was incensed at the loss of his co-presenter, Hilary Barry.
I said, I want Weldon gone. And so I set about doing that by writing an email to all the board members. I had a bit of help with it. I wanted to make it not an emotional email, but one that was based on fact. The turnover that we had of staff, which was up around 35%. The fact that morale had dropped through the floor, and on the first night of meetings, they came out and declared that they still had faith in Weldon. So I thought my career was over. And I had a scheduled meeting with him the next day, and I was driving to that meeting when his PA rang me and said the meeting was off, and then I found out that he'd resigned.
It was a real pity in a way, because Mark Weldon had a lot of good ideas. He was ahead of his time. He understood digital in many ways, far ahead of anybody else in the company.
TV is declining globally, whereas the consumption of, in particular via mobile, video content is growing rapidly.
But he was hugely impatient as well, and he didn't really understand that news organisations, they are a bit like cruise ships. They do take a bit of time to turn around.
We approached Mark Weldon, who stipulated that we read out this statement in full. One senior MWL news team member said, "Your problem is that you think news is a business. It is not. It is a family. And one of our family values is omerta, or utu. Mess with the family and they will get you." The problem with this is that the family had, in the year prior to my starting, lost $25 million of other people's money, put the entire business, including radio and entertainment, into bankruptcy, and yet were unwilling to change or even recognise the need for change. As to the National Party comment, yes, I was friends with John Key, and I did a lot of work with John and would do so again. I also worked closely with Michael Cullen and Leanne Dalziel, amongst others, and was on Helen Clark's Climate Change Leadership Forum. In terms of external views of TV3, have a read of Jacinda Ardern's open letter to Mark Weldon on the front page of the Sunday Star Times. Apart from being fundamentally inappropriate for a politician to get involved in the operations of a private business, it shows pretty clearly that the Labour Party thought TV3 News was its vassal. 3 was put up for sale and bought by Discovery, which soon after became Warner Brothers Discovery.
We believe that New Zealand's a market we're going to place a bet on.
There was a slew of new bulletins, then a hiring freeze. Do you think that we should have moved to digital, for example, quicker than we did in the end, and maybe that was the reason why it's come to this? Michael Morra.
COVID crisis, the current recession, and the rapid shift of advertising to other areas and not television. Did we move with enough vigour? In hindsight, probably not. But I do think that the things changed so rapidly, it was hard to see what was coming.
Angus Gillies says the 6 o'clock news should have gone online.
What we should have done is somehow worked a strong presence where all the viewers went, which was streaming. You know, like have a equivalent of Netflix or Neon or whatever, where our product was there. That's what I think we should have done much quicker.
David Farrier now makes series for Netflix.
Life can be dangerous when you're a dark tourist.
Part of what's killing terrestrial TV, but points out it's a fickle business.
I mean, doing what I do, working in documentary, that's constantly in flux, and things that were working earlier won't work now, and networks are commissioning different things. Nothing is static in this industry. Everything's changing. And to survive, you've just got to always be aware that the way that used to work isn't working anymore.
We all at TV3 absorbed the mantra digital first. We talked about it a lot. We went on week-long courses. We knew terrestrial TV was dying. And yet, here's Tober O'Brien.
I feel like we were doing it. Newshub Politics and the Newshub website was exceptional. Like, it was going really well. It was the 3rd biggest website in the country, but there were probably things that maybe we needed to be doing with the television offering. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when I heard the Newshub was shutting down, I felt like there at least had to be several stepping stones before hitting that nuclear button. That just felt so cataclysmic that it just felt like there was more that could have been done before we got to that point.
But that was the awful reality on February the 28th.
This is a terrible announcement. There is no sugarcoating it, and I wish I could be standing up here with better news.
Well, kia ora, Michael. Look, this is not the story that we thought we would be covering today. We're all feeling it. How is everyone in the newsroom coping?
Yeah, well, look, Sam, certainly wasn't the story I anticipated covering today, but look, I think everyone is still, it's all sinking in for people. It's certainly, the news is still sinking in for me, and I think the most difficult part of all of this is that we're all mates here at 3. We're like a family, and so to get this news today is just devastating.
Absolutely heart-wrenching. I just felt heartbroken. You just put so much into something for it just to be gone. I can only describe it like it was grief. It wasn't like anger, it was just like this incredible sort of grief that we had fire in our bellies and we had a total belief in journalism. We believed that journalism was the cornerstone of democracy, and we'd go and we'd go and we'd go until we could barely stand because we so believed in getting the stories out to New Zealanders.
On the day of that announcement, I mean, there was just so much laughter. It was sort of tears and laughter at the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah, because everyone started talking about the old times. Like, I was sitting here with Mick Roberts and we were talking about phone conversations we'd had when he was in Haiti, and, you know, how we were working out the stories.
We're not just losing a news station and a news website and great stories. We're losing something that we all fundamentally believe in and love, and that shaped us and the people that we work with. You know, like, even though I've been out of Newshub for, coming on 3 years now, it's still family, and it's still, you know, it will always be a part of me. Newshub, you know, you can't shake it off. It's part of us, so it's devastating.
In fact, staff were overworked, under-resourced and underpaid, but still loved the job. So much so, outsiders wondered whether they were a cult.
Yeah, that's right. The cult of Newshub. I mean, to an extent, but because of those circumstances, because of that kind of melting pot of things, we worked as a team, and that was what I loved about it so much. It's so collaborative being a television reporter. You're working with these incredible editors who are bringing that extra. You're working with these incredible camera operators who are bringing that extra. And what we do was so, like, we were kind of so steeped in working together and for the greater good of the 6 o'clock bulletin and the other shows that we worked on. So we were driven by that, and that's what makes it so special, is we were just so tight, and it was a real, everyone says my work family, and it's trite to say it, but it's a genuine whānau at Newshub. It's a really special place to work.
It's TV3 a cult. I think people's, I think it was a very special club. It wasn't a cult because it didn't have like a dark overlord, and I think everyone in there was a bit rebellious and did their own thing.
I mean, are we a cult?
Quite possibly. When Jennings was in charge, he was definitely like the cult leader, Mark Jennings. We all could see maybe his foibles or faults or whatever, but we trusted him. He had the final word. It was kind of like a benevolent dictatorship, and Mike Brocky was maybe Goebbels or something. He was like the Führer's right-hand man in that dictatorship. But we trusted those guys implicitly. I mean, what they didn't know about putting together a TV news program wasn't worth knowing.
No, we weren't a cult, I don't think. Although from the outside, there was a bit of that feeling. We just had a great bunch of journalists, a great bunch of cameramen and editors and producers, and we had world-class producers as well. People like Mike Brocky could have worked anywhere in the world and held their own. So yeah, I think all those things added up to us having a happy and harmonious newsroom.
Good evening. News on 3 will go on, but not as viewers know it. Warner Brothers Discovery has struck a deal with news website Stuff for a nightly TV bulletin.
Newsroom put in a rival bid to Stuff's, but Mark Jennings says the jury's out.
I really hate saying this because a lot of the good people are still going to be there, but I fear it's going to be a bit of a second-class bulletin. I have a feeling that it's going to struggle. Yeah, I kind of hope it doesn't, but I'm fearful.
From their point of view, it's let's get into TV news. It's an area we don't know anything about. We'll get these guys on board who do know how to do it, and we will use them to help us get through to whatever the next phase of video news is, and they will use us to stay employed. So there's some kind of symbiotic relationship going on where it works for them and it works for us.
Angus Gillies is one of the ones who's staying on, but Mike McRoberts is moving to pastures new.
I think that last show is it's going to be hard. Yeah, I think it's been such an honour over the years to represent everyone and their mahi for the day. It's such a thrill, and ka mua ka muri. I'll look back to look forward, and when I look back, it'll be with great pride and admiration.
That's it for now. The Detail is supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. This episode was edited and produced by Milana Khabazi and Alexia Russell. My thanks also to Angus Gillies, and to all the talented TV3 and Newshub staff. Kia kaha, matewa.